I'm here for it, and I love it. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 1059 The Zone. We're driven by your next John Deere tractor at any of the 20-plus Ag Up equipment dealerships in the state of Mississippi. John Deere, America's tractor for your family land, your hunting camp, or your farm. agup.com to find a retail location nearest you. We want to welcome in our friend, national college football analyst with ESPN, Tom Luginbill, joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right, you watched a lot of it when you got home or on Sunday morning on your Sunday show or whatever the cut-ups are that you get from ESPN. You knew about Diego Pavia from his time at New Mexico State with Tim Beck and Jerry Kill. They go in, they beat Auburn last year. Tell me, from an educated side, what did you see that Pavia and that Vanderbilt offensive line did to Bama?
Well, first off, let's just say that was not a fluke, right? When you generally have a game like that, and it's a Vandy-Alabama matchup, in order for the outcome to be what it was, you generally have, a 4-turnover performance by Alabama, a return, they give up a return punt for a touchdown. They throw a pick six, and then Vandy takes advantage of it, is in the game late, and comes up with a way to win. That's not how that game played out. And what I thought was Vanderbilt was the most physical team. They were the most organized team. They out-executed and out-coached Alabama. But maybe the most glaring thing about it was Alabama's inability to tackle and set the tone at the point of attack. There were 17 runs on the ground in that game against Alabama's defense where a Vandy ball carrier acquired 4 or more yards after contact. And so that tells the whole story, because if you go into a game with Alabama and you come out of the game and you're the most physical team up front, then that's an issue, right? That is a problem. And so it's easy to sit there and say, oh, how did Alabama let this happen? We can't diminish what Vanderbilt did here. They deserve credit for how they approached it, how they were ready. There were some offensive wrinkles to their triple option package that I thought were brilliant. I saw some things in the backfield action that I'd not seen before offensively. A lot of stuff that some other people are going to start copycatting. So let's make sure we give Vandy their due, because that was one heck of an effort of execution, preparedness, and physicality.
Tell me what you saw, like some of the wrinkles that you think others may. All right, so Tim Beck is considered one of the top up-and-coming offensive coordinators in the country, and they brought him in too from New Mexico State, and Jerry Kill was the head coach, and he's chief consultant to Clark Lee. What are some of the wrinkles that you saw that you may see some other teams incorporate over the next year or two?
Backfield action that employed misdirection, almost like old school wing T principles. And then what they would do is they would isolate a defender and not block him on purpose and force him to be wrong. So whether it's give, whether it's keep, whether it's pitch, all right, that's one thing from a triple option perspective. But all of the backfield eye candy, which essentially is employed to create eye violation and a misstep in the wrong direction. And then they got you out-leveraged. And, Diego Pavia he's a riverboat gambler. This is twice now he's taken basically 2 doormats, perennial doormats. In New Mexico State, as you mentioned, they go on and they beat Auburn last year. Vanderbilt now, they beat Alabama. He's done that twice. And credit Clark Lee for not only going out and targeting him, bringing in Jerry Kill, but they brought in the entire offensive staff at New Mexico State. And it was what a great coaching move, a great coaching hire. You add comfortability to the quarterback because he's so familiar with the process and the approach and the scheme because he's played in it for a couple of years. It's just kind of an ideal recipe for success.
Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He's on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by the Wings and Stella Artois at Martin's in Livingston. That's a great place to celebrate game day this week and this weekend. Okay, you just mentioned Diego Pavia is a riverboat gambler. We see this time and time again in college football, or college basketball or college baseball, guys that are overlooked. And you did this, Luke. You won the JUCO national championship, so you know the
Yeah.
JUCO route. And I think it's a great vehicle and vessel to get wherever else you want to get. But Diego went to JUCO. I mean, he in other words, he has grinded. Then he goes to New Mexico State. He went 11-0 at his high school. So he's been a winner. He's a side yard football. He's Jeremiah Masoli. He's a little bit of Jeremiah Masoli, a little bit of Johnny Football, a little bit of Riverboat Gambler. And I don't know if you heard his post game, Luke's, but he said, "Look, I'm from a valley in New Mexico where nobody has anything." So he's just a guy who's always had a chip on his shoulder, who's fought for everything and comes from nothing. It's a beautiful story, Tom Luginbill, that we see time and time again in college football.
Yeah, and the thing that's so sad about it is if the story were to occur now, he would not have gotten the scholarship out of junior college because the junior college ranks have been the most hardest hit area of college football when it comes to the transfer portal. Because now what used to go to a junior college player if you were fishing in that pond now gets removed and goes to the FCS Group of Five or Power Five transfer portal guy. And so the timing of his arrival at New Mexico State couldn't have been better. And you're right, his story is a lot like mine. I wasn't recruited, chose to go to junior college to prove myself, did so, was able to move on, earn scholarship opportunities, and play a lot of football as a junior and a senior. And he is a self-made man. I mean, there is no doubt about that in relationship to what he's forged and how he's gone about it. And you can tell there are some guys that you come into a new environment and you just immediately the other guys immediately gravitate towards you. This is happening right now with Syracuse and Kyle McCord.
Yes.
This is happening right now with Eli Holstein and 5-0 Pitt. And they just have a way of galvanizing a group, fitting in, quickly getting people to rally around them. And I think he's just got some of those innate traits.
I don't know how many more. This is going to be fascinating because they have a brutal schedule. You know, they still have Ball State and some other opportunities in the league. You know, we're looking at the letdown. I mean, do you expect a letdown game? They go to Kentucky. Kentucky is nasty on defense. We just did 15 minutes with you last week on Brad White. He's a top 10 defensive coordinator in the country. You know, they could run into a buzzsaw this weekend, Luke's.
Yeah, listen, I think that the downside to what happened with Vanderbilt is now everybody else that plays them looks at them differently, right? They've got everybody's attention, whereas like Alabama last week, they didn't have Alabama's attention, and they paid a big price for it. So you know that they're going to get people's effort. You know that they're going to get people's seriousness when playing Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt knows that. And then now the job of Clark Lee and the staff is to somehow get your team to come off of that high and get back to work, right? Don't ride it for 5 days and feel great about yourself because it hasn't happened before, and then all of a sudden go out and be flat coming out this weekend. So there's psychological challenges to all of this as well.
Okay. I could stay on this topic, but I got to go to Ole Miss LSU because it's the game of the week here in state. Tom Luginbill on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Now, Ole Miss did what they needed to do. They absolutely dominated South Carolina. And I thought South Carolina did a lot of things to hurt themselves over and over again in that game. But give Ole Miss credit on the road. They took advantage. The game was never close. At 14-3, it felt like it was over, that South Carolina was not going to be able to do anything. Now they go down to LSU. So tell me what jumps out at you with this matchup. Is it Nussmeier going against the Ole Miss defense, Dart going against an LSU defense that's not dominant like years past, or both? What do you see here, Luke's?
Well, the one thing I need to see is increased improvement on third down from Ole Miss, right? So how about this? Ole Miss against Kentucky, 1 of 10 on third down. Against South Carolina, 3 of 13. I don't know if you're going to get away with that against LSU because I think LSU is equipped to score and put points on the board, and you're on the road. So while Ole Miss last week was able to create some explosive plays, they've got to start sustaining drives. And I think that's the one thing that I would initially look at in this matchup. And you mentioned Garrett Nussmeier. Yes, for LSU, this is going to be a game where we know they can score points, right? But they've got to show that they can stop people. And obviously, South Alabama isn't much of a challenge. UCLA is not a very good football team.
True.
You give up 33 to South Carolina. In the back half of that game, they're playing against the backup quarterback. LSU's got to be able to stop people because if they can't stop people and Ole Miss can sustain drives, it's going to be tough for LSU to keep pace.
Okay. Let's go back to what you said about Ole Miss sustaining drives. They're not running the football, Lukes. So
Nope.
all the pressure is on Dart and Trey Harris and the wide receivers and tight ends. And I just picked up on where you were going. Constantly making Ole Miss perform at a high level in pass pro instead of pinning their ears back and getting rolling downhill like Lane wants to do. Then he hurts you in the passing game. You know, when you look at this, they're just not running the football at the level they've done, like we talked about with Jerrion Ely, Snoop Connor, and Judkins. Tom?
Yeah, and what's happened when you're not running the footballs effectively, you're not in second and third down line to gains that are advantageous, right? So instead of being in third and -3, you might be in third and +7 or third and 10 or second and 11 or second and 10. Winning on those early downs with that run game makes everything so much easier on you. And in an offense, too, like Ole Miss, if they cross the 50-yard line, they ain't punting.
Right.
So you got to get in third and 4 or less, second and 4 or less, so that past midfield, we got 2 downs to get 4 yards. But unless you get help in the run game early and have success on first down, and this ties directly to tempo and pace of play too. You've heard me talk about that a lot. If you are successful on first down, or you get a first down on first down, Ole Miss is going to go 100 miles an hour. If you can't do that, now all of a sudden you're not the same team that you want to be. And I think that's an area with Ole Miss, with teams that have had success with them, is they've slowed them down because they haven't had success on first down, and now that's in a place that Ole Miss doesn't want to be.
Okay, so Henry Parrish Jr. has been dinged up a little bit. They've got a walk-on behind him. Bentley hasn't played. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. And, of course, Judkins went to Ohio State, so we're kind of trying to figure out who may be the next guy or if Parrish can get healthy to do this. Trey Harris is a game-time decision, according to Lane Kiffin and Jordan Watkins from Monday press conferences. You know, how could that – I mean, he is a dude, Lugs. How could that impact the game if Harris doesn't play?
Well, it's significant because he's got 52 catches, and the next most amount of catches is Caden Lee at 18. I mean, look at the discrepancy there.
Wow.
And so they can spread the ball around and do all of those things, and that's fine and dandy. But usually, your top receiver is going to, he might have 43 catches and the next guy's 36, right? And then the next guy's 29 or what have you if you're dispersing the ball around. But you're talking about taking 5 touchdowns, an average yards per catch of 17 yards and 52 receptions, and removing him for the offense. Who becomes your go-to guy? So that would be a big, big miss, in my opinion, if he didn't play.
All right, Tom Luginbill, this is the game of the week. Ole Miss at LSU, under the lights, Death Valley, driven by your next Ford F-150 truck at Mackay Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. Tell me about Caden Durham, the freshman running back. He is built, okay? He's not tall, but he packs a punch. They feel like they may have found something at running back with Caden Durham at LSU.
Yeah, they absolutely did because, Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, John Emery early on started to look like the guy that everybody projected him to be coming out of high school, and then unfortunately got injured. And he had gotten off to a really good 2-game start and looked like he was going to be the load carrier. So Caden Durham has come on for them, and, you know, he's one of those guys. It's interesting how you described him. There are guys that are short and small. He's short, but he's not small. He's compact. He's like Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 2 inches on top of him. You know, low to the ground, stout. Again, not very tall, but that doesn't mean he's small. And so he's turned into, to be honest with you, he's kind of turned into a savior for them right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When the Emory was ripping off runs and then all of a sudden tore his ACL against Southern Cal, I think late in the game. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN. So you're expecting a very close one-possession game in Baton Rouge?
I would think so, and I think it's got the probability of potentially turning into a track meet. I mean, I could see that happening too. I mean, when Garrett Nussmeier's throwing 15 touchdowns, just 4 turnovers, but he's only been sacked twice. And you consider they throw the football a lot, and so maybe this sucker is one of those. It's first to 40, right? First to 45, and we could have ourselves a real barn burner.
All right, what about Oklahoma, Texas? I feel like it's too many points. I get that Oklahoma can't find their way on offense, and that Texas with Quinn Ewers coming back, is a different team. Arch just isn't there yet. But Oklahoma's nasty on defense, and I feel like they've got the chip on their shoulder in this game because it's big, bad Texas against Oklahoma, and that's why Oklahoma plays so well and wins more times than not in this game. 15.5 feels like too many, Lugs. How do you see this one in Dallas at the fair?
I would initially say, yes, it's too many, but I think the way Vegas is looking at this is they're seeing a true freshman quarterback with an offense that hasn't been able to run the football in the biggest game of the young man's career, and they're counting on him making a mistake. Now, he didn't make mistakes against Auburn on the road. In fact, he played as good as you could ask a true freshman to play in a hostile environment. Now, Oklahoma did not deserve to win that game. Auburn screwed that game up.
Sure.
But still, the kid made some plays and then avoided the catastrophic mistakes. Is that number too big versus Texas? I think it is if the kid plays clean. But in a moment like that, big game, we're going to find out real quick what that freshman is made of. And I loved what I saw from him against Auburn, but this is a different animal from a rivalry perspective. Neutral site. Texas is loaded in about every facet of the game. So I can see both sides of it. I really can. If they go out and they make mistakes offensively, not only will it be more than 15, it could get ugly. If he doesn't, then they keep it close into the second half. Okay,
I see where you're going. If he makes a couple of turnovers or if they just go 3 and out, then Texas is just going to pour it on. So can they sustain any, some drives and get some things going and let him make plays with his legs?
And keep in mind, you ain't beating Texas with field goals. So let's just say Oklahoma has some sustained drives. They're doing some nice things and moving the football. They can't score a touchdown. So red zone efficiency with a freshman quarterback is going to be critical.
Okay. All right. Do we have? Yeah, we still got a few minutes. Tom Luginbill, ESPN on the Out of Bounds show. Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee's coming off a devastating loss where Arkansas took it to them. I feel like they'll regroup. Florida, Central Florida is not good, but they won the game. Is there any way Florida is trending in the right direction and can make this a game throughout Saturday night, Tom?
Well, listen, there were some things put on tape on behalf of Arkansas that I think Florida could potentially take advantage of when it comes to how to slow down Tennessee, because Arkansas beat Tennessee up front. And for the first time, Nico Iamaleava looked flustered, he looked confused, and he was out of sync. So all of a sudden, they're not running the ball with Dylan Sampson, and they're not creating explosive plays either. Tennessee last week was 17 of 29, but for like 150-something yards, not 350-something yards. And they become so accustomed to being able to spread it horizontally, run the ball until you add another guy in the box, and then it bombs away over the top. Well, they couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't pass protect consistently, and Arkansas just kept hanging in there. My concern is this is the first road game against anybody any good, right? Florida has been at home for every single game except for at Mississippi State. And now you go on the road in a hostile environment versus a team that's pretty good. And I think Florida's going to have to play well. They cannot make mistakes. When DJ Lagway plays, the moment and the environment cannot be too big for him. But it'll be interesting. We'll see. Florida may be getting a little bit better, but nobody's paying attention to it, right?
Yeah.
And now, they've won 3 of their last 4. The A&M game was not a good outing at home. They didn't play well. But this could be a really revealing week for whether or not they're making significant strides.
All right, I got rapid fire. I got 1 minute. 2 games. Ohio State at Oregon.
Ohio State has had a schedule like Ole Miss did leading into the Kentucky game, and they can't allow it to come up and bite them. And I'll be curious to see if Oregon can handle Ohio State in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
And Penn State at Southern Cal.
I think Penn State will hammer Southern Cal.
Wow. In the trenches, that's the deal?
In the trenches, and I think that the offense with Drew Aller, the multitude of weapons, the ability to run the football. If you haven't watched Penn State's offensive approach, you need to watch them. Andy Kotelnicki was one of the best hires of the offseason for James Franklin. I think anytime you're going west, the time change is not a big deal at all. It's a big deal when you're going east. And so I like Penn State in this one. And SC did not look good against Minnesota last week.
Okay. So you called that 3 months ago on Penn State and their OC hire after they've been out in no man's land as far as offense for years. All right. Tom, what do you have this week, real quick?
I've got red hot Syracuse against NC State on Saturday night.
Dude, Kyle McCord is so good. Good.
He's balling, man.
Grief.
Balling.
He is fun to watch. All right. Enjoy that game. Thank you, buddy. We'll talk next week.
All right, thanks, man. See ya.
Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by mssmarthomes.com. You need the Sonos surround sound system in your living room, right? Game room, kitchen, man room. You need to call Jake Manning, mssmarthomes.com. I've got it at my house and in my man cave. It is fantastic. mssmarthomes.com for music, game day, and movies.